3:14 a.m. The Gulf of Oman. A Shahed 136 one-way drone hits the port side of the 60,000-ton oil tanker MV Genco Picardy. The steel plating tears open like thin aluminum, leaving a gap so wide a truck could pass through it. The tanker begins to lose speed, and that is the worst possible thing that can happen. Out here, a slow ship becomes an easy target, trapped in the center of a very dangerous stretch of water. Then the radar screen changes. 3 more red contacts appear. 3 more drones are racing low over the waves, heading straight for the tanker. The ship has no real way to defend itself. 40 miles to the east, the USS Laboon, an Arleigh Burke-class U.S. destroyer, detects the same signals. But instead of turning toward the damaged tanker, the destroyer does something that makes no sense. It accelerates. 35 miles per hour. Full speed. Away from the tanker. To the operators watching from the coastline, it looks like the perfect moment. The U.S. ship is pulling back. The tanker has been left alone. And if anyone was going to stop what comes next, it already seems too late. But in this part of the sea, appearances can be dangerously misleading. The 3 Shahed 136 drones are now 6 miles from the tanker. At their current speed, they will reach the hull in under 3 minutes. Then the situation escalates. From the dark coastline of the Gulf of Oman, 6 low-profile shapes slide across the water. They are unmanned surface vessels, fast sea drones built to skim over the waves with a heavy payload inside. Think of them like high-speed jet skis guided from far away, small enough to be hard to track, fast enough to close distance quickly, and dangerous when they move as a group. One by one, they spread out across the water, a wolf pack. Their target is the tanker's waterline. If even one reaches the engine room, seawater could pour into the hull, leaving the tanker helpless and turning the incident into a global emergency. The world's oil routes could be disrupted for months. The drones close in. The tanker tries to turn, but at 10 knots, it is like trying to move a mountain during a storm. The ship is too large, too slow, and running out of room. Then, exactly 3 miles out, something strange happens. The lead sea drone suddenly snaps 90 degrees to the left. It hits a wave, loses its line, and starts spinning in circles. The second drone follows. Its engine surges, then fades, then the third, then the fourth. One after another, the entire wolf pack loses coordination. The USS Laboon may be miles away, but it has left something behind. An electronic shadow. High-powered systems aboard the destroyer have filled the surrounding airwaves with digital interference. The satellite guidance the sea drones depend on is no longer giving them a clear path. Instead of showing the tanker ahead, their systems are being fed false positioning data, making them behave as if they are somewhere far away from the sea entirely. In seconds, the high-tech swarm becomes useless metal drifting across the water. But the operators on shore understand what happened. Their drones are being jammed, and now they make a new decision. They stop relying on signals. They switch to something that cannot be confused, redirected, or shut down by electronic interference. From the coastline, new launches begin. A massive heat bloom suddenly appears on the U.S. satellite feed. This is an ASBM, an anti-ship ballistic missile. A 3-ton spear of steel and rocket fuel rises from the coastline and climbs almost to the edge of space. Then it begins its long arc back toward Earth. By the time it enters its final dive, the missile is moving at nearly 3 times the speed of sound. At that speed, its weight alone carries enough force to tear through the tanker from one side to the other. But there is one problem. A ballistic missile coming down from that altitude cannot simply guess where a moving ship will be. It needs a final target update. It needs one last set of coordinates. And that is when the second trap is revealed. 2 miles from the damaged tanker, a small wooden fishing dhow suddenly changes. Until this moment, it looked like an ordinary local boat, the kind seen across these waters every day. To anyone watching from a distance, it seemed like a group of fishermen had stopped to observe the chaos. Then the heavy camouflage netting in the center of the boat drops away. Hidden underneath is a military-grade radar array and a satellite uplink. This was never just a fishing vessel. It is a mobile targeting station, hidden in plain sight, using the cover of a civilian-looking boat to send the tanker's exact coordinates to the missile falling from above. The drones were the distraction. The destroyer moving away was the opening. And now the missile is 60,000 feet in the air, diving straight toward the MV Genco Picardy. 30 seconds remain. Then, 60 miles away, the USS Laboon responds. Built into the deck of the destroyer are vertical launch cells, each holding a missile ready to fire almost instantly. 4 of those cells open. The first 2 interceptors to leave the deck are SM-6 missiles. Behind them, 2 SM-2 Block 3C missiles launch as a second layer of defense. The operators on shore believed the U.S. destroyer was too far away to see the threat. They believed the curve of the Earth had hidden them. They believed their disguised targeting boat was the only eye guiding the strike. They were wrong. High above the clouds, at 30,000 feet, a USP-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft has been circling in silence. It is not using its own radar. That would reveal its position. Instead, it is watching through a high-definition infrared sensor, tracking the heat signature of the missile's engine as it falls. The P-8 sends that information down to the USS Laboon. The SM-6 interceptors receive the data while already in flight. Their fins adjust. Their flight path shifts. They climb higher, banking into the exact corridor where the incoming missile is expected to pass. In simple terms, the ship launches the shot, but the aircraft helps guide it. And that changes everything. The missile is no longer hidden behind distance. It is no longer protected by the horizon. It has been seen, tracked, and calculated. 10 miles above the water, the first SM-6 reaches its intercept zone. Its sensors lock onto the incoming missile, now dropping through the sky as a heavy, fast-moving mass of steel. The two objects are closing on each other at a combined speed of almost 5,000 miles per hour. The ASBM is shattered in midair. From the tanker's deck, it looks as if a star has suddenly burst open in the night sky. For a moment, the whole horizon flashes white. The danger from above is gone, but the ghost ship is still there. The disguised fishing dhow has just watched its entire plan fall apart in a single flash. Now it tries to escape, turning hard and pushing its engine to the limit. But once the U.S. Navy has locked onto a target, it does not simply lose it. The USS Laboon is already closing the distance at 35 knots, its bow slicing through the waves like a blade. At this range, the destroyer does not need another interceptor. It uses the Mark 45 5-inch gun mounted on the forward deck. The first round leaves the barrel at nearly 2,500 feet per second. But this is not an ordinary shell. It is a guided projectile built with small control fins that allow it to adjust its path in the air. So even if the dhow turns, weaves, and tries to disappear into the dark, the round continues to follow. Imagine a sniper shot, but the projectile is the size of a fire extinguisher. The first round reaches the dhow's engine room. It cuts through the side of the vessel, tears through the machinery, and triggers the hidden self-destruction charges inside. That is when the truth becomes clear. The ghost ship was not only a targeting platform, it had also been prepared to destroy its own equipment if capture became possible. The operators wanted to make sure no radar systems, uplinks, or onboard technology could ever be recovered. But the Mark 45 round reaches those charges first. In the next instant, the dhow disappears behind a huge flash and a rising wall of spray. Pieces of its expensive radar array are thrown high into the air. The ghost ship is gone from the surface of the ocean in a single heartbeat. But the fight is not over yet. The 6 sea drones that had been jammed earlier are still floating nearby. Their engines idle in the water, waiting for a signal that will never arrive. The USS Laboon does not waste its main gun on them. Instead, the flight deck comes alive. 2 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters lift off from the rear of the destroyer. Beneath their short wings are racks of AGM-114 Hellfire missiles. The helicopters move into position and hover 2 miles away, using their nose-mounted cameras to lock onto the drifting sea drones. The first Hellfire strikes one of the unmanned boats and sets off a massive secondary blast. A column of seawater shoots almost 100 feet into the air. Then another drone disappears. Then another. In less than 3 minutes, all 6 are gone. The Wolfpack has been reduced to wreckage beneath the waves. The MV Genko Picardy is still burning, but it is no longer being hunted. Still, one question remains. Where did the ballistic missile come from? The answer has already been found. High above the clouds, the P-8 Poseidon has traced the launch back to its source. It has found the nest. And the U.S. Navy is not leaving this unfinished. To stop another strike before it can begin, the battle is about to move from the water to the shoreline. While the Seahawks were clearing the sea drones, the P-8 Poseidon was mapping the coast. Its sensors had tracked the ASBM launch to a rugged limestone cliffside. Hidden inside the rock is a reinforced cave complex, carved into the mountain to conceal mobile launchers from satellite view. The enemy believed the plan was simple: drive the launch vehicles out, fire the missile, then vanish back into the mountain before anyone could respond. But this time, they were still being watched. They made one critical mistake. They did not prepare only one launch, they prepared a second. And that gave them away. The heat from the first launch was still trapped inside the cave, turning the entrance into a glowing mark on the thermal sensors of the U.S. aircraft above. To the P-8 Poseidon, the hidden base was no longer hidden at all. The U.S. now had the exact location of the enemy's front door. On the deck of the USS Laboon, the final phase begins. 2 more vertical launch cells open. 2 Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missiles rise from the destroyer and turn toward the coast. As the Tomahawks approach the shoreline, the enemy realizes what has happened. They have been found. So they reveal their last hidden card, a mobile surface-to-air defense battery that had been sitting completely silent, waiting for the right moment and avoiding detection. Now it comes alive. Its radar powers up. 2 interceptors launch toward the incoming Tomahawks. For 10 seconds, the cruise missiles are in real danger. But the U.S. had already planned for this possibility. High above the area, hidden in the darkness, a pair of F/A-18 Super Hornets had been waiting. The moment the enemy radar turns on, it sends a powerful electronic signal into the sky. And that signal gives away its position. One of the Super Hornets responds immediately. An AGM-88 Harm leaves the aircraft and races toward the source of the radar signal. On the ground, the enemy commander sees the incoming threat appear on his screen. He makes the only move left. He shuts the radar down and tries to disappear. But it is already too late. The Harm has locked in the radar's last known location. Even with the system switched off, the missile remembers where to go. Seconds later, the mobile defense battery is taken out. The enemy's last layer of protection is gone. Now the 2 Tomahawks have a clear path. They fly low over the terrain, staying close to the ground as they approach the limestone cliffs. At the final moment, both missiles bank sharply and line up with the cave entrance. They do not hit the outside of the mountain. They fly directly into the opening. The first Tomahawk reaches the primary missile loading area. The second reaches the storage section, holding the backup rocket fuel. The U.S. strike does not only rely on its own power, it turns the enemy's own stockpile against them. Inside the cave, the stored fuel ignites almost all at once. For a moment, the entire mountainside glows from within, as if the rock itself is breathing fire. Then the hidden launch site is gone. The nest has been removed. Out in the Gulf of Oman, the sea begins to grow quiet as the first light of morning touches the horizon. The MV Genco Picardy, the crude oil tanker that began the night as the target, is finally moving out of the narrow strait. But one final threat still remains on the coastline. One last shore battery makes a desperate move. It is a small truck-mounted cannon positioned along the coastline, trying to take one final shot at the tanker before it escapes. The gun fires a short burst. 3 rounds streak toward the tanker's stern. The USS Laboon reacts instantly. Its phalanx CIWS comes online. The system wakes with a violent ripping sound, like a giant sheet of canvas being torn apart in the dark. A stream of glowing tracers cuts through the night sky, reaching out toward the incoming rounds. All 3 are stopped before they can get close. Half a mile from the tanker, the threat disappears in the air. On the shore, the crew of the truck-mounted 57mm cannon sees the line of fire sweeping toward their position. They turn away and race back into the desert. They understand now what this night has made clear. In this stretch of water, the U.S. Navy controls the fight. The MV Genco Picardy continues forward. The tanker will reach its destination. Its cargo will continue toward the world's markets. And the strike that was meant to change control of the Gulf of Oman has failed completely. What was supposed to be the enemy's biggest success of the week has instead become the moment their entire plan collapsed. But before this story ends, there is one detail about the SM-6 interceptor that most people never think about. Most missiles work like arrows. The ship sees the target, aims the missile, and sends it on its path. But the SM-6 is different. It does not need the launching ship to see the target the entire time. In fact, when the USS Laboon fired, the incoming missile was not even visible on the destroyer's own radar screens. The SM-6 was launched toward a threat the ship itself could not directly see. And while it was already in the air, the P-8 Poseidon miles away helped guide it toward the right point in the sky. That changes everything. It means the U.S. Navy can engage a threat hidden beyond the horizon, behind the curve of the Earth, or even beyond terrain that blocks a ship's radar view. The SM-6 is not just a missile. It is a fast, networked weapon that can become part of a much larger system where one platform launches, another platform tracks, and the interceptor adjusts while already in flight. Now think about what that does to an opponent's strategy. You can hide a launcher behind a cliff. You can stay below the horizon of a destroyer. You can try to keep the ship from seeing you. But if another aircraft, drone, or sensor in the network can track you, the missile can still be guided toward the threat. In a modern naval battle, the ship that fires does not always have to be the ship that sees. And that is what makes the system so dangerous.